Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. Today it's match day. I'm joined by Lawrence Conley and Russell Boyce to talk about the visit of Hearts. This is the Premier Sports Cup. It's the League Cup, the first game for Celtic in the League Cup as we go to try and claw back, Boyce, the trophies that were ours for so long until last season. The teams have been announced. What was your first thoughts? How are we going to shape this team? Because there has been a few changes.
Well, it's brilliant. Again, it's another example of Ange adapting. Basically, what we've seen is we lost, obviously, the match to Hearts, unfortunately, the opening day of the season. He's went with it. For me, what it looks like on paper anyway, it looks like it could be a more aggressive system this time. Okay, the one that we lost was at Tynecastle, so there's obviously, you would set up differently at home. We've petitioned, I think, on this show many a time as to why we only start one forward when we're in home games against domestic opposition. Today, we've got Kyogo and Edouard. Now, it's up to interpretation how we line those two up, whether they play as a partnership or whether Kyogo plays deeper. But what is exciting is you've got two guys there that you know are brimming with quality. As much as Edouard's been off the boil, if you actually look at it on paper, you would say that is a tasty forward line to have, especially with the supply that we've seen recently. We've discussed this all week on ACSOM. The supply levels have been absolutely superb from wide and from through the middle. I think there could be goals today again. I think there's a lot to be positive about when you see a team line up like that.
Well, I feel a lot more positive than the last fixture against Hearts. It's a wee bit different here on ACSOM and on the match day because, over the last year, we were catering for Celtic fans of any persuasion, be them season ticket holders or exiled here, there and everywhere, all over the world. And we get a sense, actually, where the audience is because you get the analytics and we know we've got people tuning in from all over the place. This season is going to be a wee bit different because people are back. They're back in the stadium. But we are still going to go out every match day. Still not sure how we're going to do it because obviously we're juggling season tickets and we're juggling studio time. We don't know how to go live outside the stadium, whether or not we do that in some kind of camper van or if we maybe get into the stadium into like a broom cupboard or something like that. But we will be broadcasting regardless. Now, I'm looking at that team lineup, Boyce, and before we came on, Lawrence and I were trying to figure out there's obviously a few options there. Is James Forrest going to start on his usual right-hand side? He can play left. Is Furuhashi going to be leading the line with Eddie, or is he going to be playing on the left? So there's a few different options. Lawrence, when you look at the personnel, how do you think beyond the back four Celtic will actually shape up?
Well, I think it's going to be fluid throughout the game, but for me, I think we'll start two up top. Rogic sitting behind him, Forrest to the left, Calmack in the middle, Turnbull on the right. But, it depends where the ball is in the park. We're able to change, Eddie can play left. He used to play with Med Musa. We can have Kyogo leading the line, which will probably make it a lot harder for Hearts to pick up on our players, who they should be marking. The fact that it can be so fluid during the game. Mm-hmm. Roger could drop into midfield. He was outstanding the other night, wasn't he? He was. Rather than just playing behind the strikers. So, and you could have Forrest just sit behind or Turnbull sit behind. So, I think it's going to ask questions of Hearts. Obviously, Ange's seen them. This is his second game against them. Hopefully, we get a win this time. I know we'll all be hoping for a stronger refereeing performance. And I know Mr. Beaton's the kind of ref that doesn't allow these kind of tackles to go against Celtic players. So I'm expecting to see, a strong ref this game.
Boyce, you're laughing because before the game, we're looking at lineups. We're seeing who's lining up for Hearts. And Lawrence is feverishly finding out who the officials are. But that's fine because it's a collective here. And I've got to say, the last time you were on the match day, Lawrence, I sold you down the river because the earphones were echoing in your ears and it put you off a great deal, particularly in the pre-match. But we've now got the proper link up and you can hear everything absolutely fine. Hopefully everybody out there who's watching on a host of different destinations can still hear us because we're out there on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitch. Any I've forgotten about, Boyce? Anywhere you can live stream, we'll be live streaming this season. absolutely catering for Celtic fans all over the globe. And we'll be pulling some of your comments in as much as we possibly can. We've got coming in from YouTube, Love It, pointing out no Abada or Christie. Wow, both must be injured, I think. Well, we knew, Boyce, that Abada had picked up a knock and he missed the last game for Celtic. But, I mean, we've played so well, but he has made a massive impact. Christie's been playing some of the best football of his Celtic career. But I'm looking at that team, and although, yeah, they are always going to be missed, I still think we can get through this tie without them.
No, there's a lot of strength now in depth already. You can see the new signings have really bolstered the squad. And of course, the key with what Brendan Rodgers did so well was he made players at the club better. And suddenly Christie's now looking like this first team regular, where we kind of all predicted that he wouldn't be part of the equation really come the start of the season because of obviously his contract situation. I was out walking the dog earlier, Paul, right? And obviously Scream of Celtic Tuesdays, I'm a music man, and on my Spotify came on a song called It's Getting Better by Cass Elliot, and it is just an uplifting tune. And I always relate song lyrics to events happening in my life. It's just one of the things I do. I'm a lyrics man. I love song lyrics, and you can always find a way. And I just thought of the Celtic when that came on today. It's like it's getting better day by day, and right now we are on a wave of optimism. We've scored was it 13 goals in the last 3 games?
Yes,
we're looking at 2 players dropping out, and we're excited to see how he deals with that, how he combats it with the options that are there. At the start of the season, you're seeing 2 guys that would have been key after the first 4 games dropped out. We'd be panicking. We would be panicking. But the whole narrative's flipped right now, and there's a wave of positivity. Obviously, I do like to flip it, and I would be honest and say the opposition we've put 13 goals past have been poor, in my opinion, right? I don't think I think we'll have far tougher tests, probably starting today. But I do feel that Ange ball's kind of kicked in now. He is definitely getting the tunes out the players that he was wanting to, and we're beginning to see what the future could look like. I think it'll be eventful. I think it'll be rocky. But games like today, when you see a positive lineup like we've got, despite the omissions, I think that's really positive and something we should be doing at home. It's concerned me for a long time why we've only ever played one up top at home domestically. When I feel the money we spend compared with our rivals, you should be able to confidently play, at least 2 up front or far more attacking sort of formations than what we have done. And the defensive midfielder thing, I think, becomes kind of vacant at home as well. Let's just get the ball forward. But I'm hoping to see a continuation of what we've watched the last 3 matches today.
But part of that's you become too predictable if that's always your formation, always one up front. So the opposition can plan for that all week.
Yeah. They're
now looking at this team sheet and going, right, who's picking up who, what's the formation? So they'll be doing their work as soon as that team's up. They've only getting out to do it and now and going, right, if it's Eddie and Kyle go up front, right, this is how we're going to play it. If it's not that, if it's one up front, this is how we're going to play it. It just asks different questions, so all of them gives them more to think about.
That's a good point, because Celtic were very predictable last season, and teams figured out, Lawrence, how to not only play against us but to beat us, to hold us, and that was something that previous to that we were a juggernaut, and then last season that came to a halt. One of the big talking points, I guess, in amongst the comments is how are we going to line up? Are we going to be playing with 2 up front? And Karaoke, I think that's your name, Karaoke. Eddie and Kyogo up front could be great. Depends how Eddie starts. Now, the big thing with that, Boyce, you look at an Eduard who is firing on all cylinders, top of his game. I mean, imagine the prospect of him playing up front with Kyogo on the form that Kyogo's shown so far. But we just don't know what Eddie's going to give us, do we?
Well, no, we don't. But I mean, there's a few different sort of ways of looking at it. I'm hoping first and foremost Kyogo has put Eddie's nose out of joint and actually has given him a boot up the backside because of the way that Kyogo's conducting himself in the pitch, the level of work rate, enthusiasm, and then the quality. I'm hoping that's actually going to leave us with a situation where Eddie goes, I need to raise this here a wee bit. I need to lift my performance a wee bit here. Because you're silent, Lawrence, mate. It's just me talking to myself, man. This is brilliant. But I just think that Edouard he's got 2 ways of looking at this. He can either go in the cream puff, that he's not starting matches, and then he starts today, or he uses it as an inspiration tool. And he actually goes, do you know what? I have not been doing enough of what Kyogo does, because what Kyogo does off the ball is just as important as what he does on the ball. And a lot of it comes down to work rate, ethics, you know what I mean? A determination, passion for the club you're playing for the jersey. When was the last time we even debated people playing for the jersey, because we talk about money all the time? My concern with Eddie, though, is, and me and Tony spoke about this on Friday night, see that finish when, you know, I know Forrest scored the rebound, but that was back to what he did at Ibrox, you know, the silly, it was just needless. And I'm going, you know, surely for your own confidence, that's a guy playing for himself, is what I've seen when he did that chip. That wasn't playing for the team. So that would be my concern with Eddie. But I'm just hoping on a professional level, you watch one of your peers in the position you play in, absolutely smashing it by doing things that you've been lacking, and still no move, by the way, in the pipeline either. And hopefully uses these sort of negatives to, you know, start getting his finger out more. And again, then you do have a potential partnership that would put the fear up the whole country by a mile.
It could, Boise. Sorry, I dropped out the mic there, and Lawrence was doing his best impression of the silence that often we hear from the board when we're looking to sign players. What it says, Kyogo gives a far more threat centre forward than Eddie, absolutely, but Kyogo can also play on the left. But then we've got news coming in from, I mean, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Eddie playing the Samaras role today out left will be interesting. The Samaras role in more ways than one, Lawrence, because Sammy had that knack of, he had this demeanour where he simply did look interested at times, and we've seen that too often for Eddie. Hopefully we don't see it today.
Yeah, they both share a kind of a languid playing style, shall we say, that would suggest a lack of effort. But listen, Thursday, there was one point when I actually saw Eddie chasing a ball down. You were like, it's been a long while since we've seen that. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's what Ross was talking about. You get a bit of his nose put out of joint. He's thinking, I'm the star striker here, whereas I think we've all went, Eddie who? Well, you know, Kyle was one and we're just going, right, Eddie who? You're on your way, see you later, mate.
This is how you do it. I mean, I think it was Boyce that said it before as well when he came on in the first leg against Jablonec, and it was basically almost a passing of the baton, and off comes Kyogo, having played tremendously well, and then on trots Eddie, a guy who has shown us, Boise, that he has been one of the finest Celtic strikers of the last decade, without a shadow of a doubt. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't want to see Celtic career tapering off. There's then stories circulating around his demands, etc., and whether or not, because Ange's already said he might end up running down his contract at Celtic Park. I just want to see the old style footballer playing for the jersey. I mean, I'm sick of the modern day player down in tools. I'm sick of hearing stories of Harry Kane down in tools. And before him, Van Dijk done it. You know, Van Dijk done it with Southampton to force his move. We've seen it so often. Modern day, you know, going back to my era, I don't think it should matter. You're getting paid phenomenal wages to do a job, so you go out and do it. And Ange just said, Russell, that whilst the players are available, he will select them regardless. And I think when you look at the bench, the white elephant is back in the room because Lee Griffiths is on the bench. What do you make of that, Russell?
I think it's a situation that I spoke quite strongly about it a couple of weeks ago. For me, the game's a bogey there. I don't think there's any reprieve. I don't think there's any way back. When there's division caused in the stands, I mean, imagine if he comes on today when it's 60,000. What did we see? The division we seen after, it was West Ham game, wasn't it? He came on.
Yeah.
I mean, the division that we seen then, when how many thousands were there then? 8,000, something like that?
9,000, 9,000, yeah.
9,000. You magnify that or times it or multiply it by, 5 and you get up to, 60,000. Well, my math is shocking. Whatever amount you multiply it by, right? To get to 60,000. And you imagine then the scenes. And if there's people fighting in the stands already, there's going to be more of that because it obviously, as I say, it snowballs. It carries a bad effect. I don't really get it, to be honest with you. Celtic would be in their best interest to cut cloth on the Griffiths thing. People can have as many opinions on it as they want, and I understand that, there was a couple of guys that said to us in the pub lawns, in fairness, that day when we were in, wherever we were, and there was a couple of boys said that when you put on the Celtic jersey, you shouldn't be booed. But I also get the other side, that Celtic's more than just a team on the pitch. To a lot of people, it represents, a cause. It's an ethical thing. the fact of the matter is, not everyone's going to agree on it. So cut all ties and remove it. Because right now, what did I just speak about 10 minutes ago? The wave of positivity. That is, to me, the other side of that. That's just needless. It's just a dark cloud now. And I'm not going to go through Griffiths personally or anything like that. I'm talking about it as a situation Celtic are in right now. They have a black sheep right now, you know? And that, unfortunately, being on the bench is only going to cause frustration when he warms up round the side. It's going to cause boos. It's going to cause heckling. It's going to then cause fans arguing saying you don't do that. You can see this being a disaster movie. And right now, it's not one we need.
No.
And I'll tell you this as well. If he was to make an appearance ahead of someone like Ajeti, then for me, Ajeti has moved into Barkas land. And that, you know, and that is 10 million that is I've been absolutely squandered.
Purgatory. The thing is, you were slagging off your mathematics there, but I do remember back in the day, Derek Johnson, remember in Not The View, Lawrence Johnson balls, and every time he messed up, they quoted what he said wrong. And there was one occasion, Russell, where he says, Rangers are playing with a 5-man back four. So your maths isn't all that bad, mate. Your maths isn't all that bad. I'm going to dip into what Red Scotland's got to say. Shame for Aberdeen. Hope Celtic get through with another clean sheet. Lack of transfer activity becoming a sick joke. Getting the money out, PLC, and get the players in. It kind of goes back to what Russell was saying, Lawrence. You know, when you're on this wave of optimism, this is a time where you continue, you keep it going, because we know that as great as some of the players have played at the back, we'd still need them strengthened. We need that, 2 or 3 signings to still come in so that we can push on with this wave of optimism that we've had over the last 2 or 3 games. On the one hand, we don't want to get over zealous about it, but on the other hand, let's actually celebrate when Celtic are playing so well. One point I would make there about Lee Griffiths when Boyce was talking about it, you go back, you fast forward, you reverse back to when everything was shut down and Griffiths and Eddie had kind of like emerged with a partnership, and it really changed their fortunes, because we had the Rangers game at Celtic Park where they beat us and Christie missed the penalty, and there was a period of time where we really had to just suck that up before the next fixture. We started playing with the 2 up front, Griffiths and Eddie. Leading up to that, every time Lee Griffiths stood up and went out to warm up, the entire stadium, were applauding him. They were on their feet. They were cheering. They really wanted Lee Griffiths to succeed in a Celtic jersey. And we've spoken about the effects, Russell, of fast forward to now, 17 months later, with the pandemics. My maths might be getting brought into question now, 16 months later with the pandemic. And then Scott Brown's playing for Aberdeen and Lee Griffiths is getting booed. And it's almost like you're in this alternate reality. It's a Kevin Graham one on Scream of Celica on a Tuesday night. But that's where we are. And I just don't want anything, Lawrence, to get in the way of this rebuild. And I think that he is a sideshow. And it's a sideshow we don't really need, because you've got Ajeti sitting there.
Totally. Listen, I could have had my say in the Griffiths thing. I don't think he should ever wear the hoops again. But, we've got some momentum going. I think he's just, he detracts from the whole positivity. We're getting signings over the line. Listen, we know we need another right back. We've only got Tony Ralston. We could do with a left winger. We don't know what's happened to Christie. Probably do with a centre half and an off forward. But we seem to have stalled again in the signings, don't we? And whether that's the board saying, well, we want to get the money in for Eddie and then we'll use that to fund it. Well, what if Eddie doesn't go? Still doesn't mean we're not short on those positions. Mm-hmm. It's up to the player whether he wants to move, whether it's for 70 grand a week or whatever his reported wage demands are. If he doesn't move, we're still short on the position. So do we play 6 months or a whole season short until he's moved out the squad? I think that's kind of very short-sighted with us, especially what's at stake this season, automatic entry to the Champions League. You've touched on, what does it say to Ajeti if Griffiths has picked it ahead of him? I mean, Ajeti looks a lot trimmer than he did last season when he came in. Yeah. Scored a few goals pre-season. If you don't play him, you're saying, well, that's the standard of Celtic player that we'll pick ahead of you. A guy that behaves like that. Mm-hmm. I just don't think it's the right message to send out at all. But it's Ange's show, isn't it? And if he's put him in the squad, you've just got to say, well, he's the manager and this is the kind of decisions he's paid to make.
Yeah,
whether he's put him in a squad to make a point about how light we are I don't know, you know, but you're looking and going. For me, I wouldn't have him in, but you've got to say, right, it's Ange's show. Listen, it's not that I don't want Griffiths to succeed in a Celtic shirt. I just don't think he should be wearing one, which I suppose is a different thing. You know, we all wanted him to succeed and come back from his issues that he had previously.
Absolutely.
But I think these are different issues now, aren't they? That's self-inflicted. And it's just something we still... if we could move on, you know, it would just be better. If we could move him out and move on, it would be better for everybody, I think.
You make a good point. I'm going to have a wee look at the bench because I think it does show the nature of the squad, the lack of depth actually, when you start looking at some of those sitting on the bench today. Henrik 67 is obviously impressed with our wave of optimism because if we win the next 4 games, he's going to buy a surfboard. But I guess we've used the wave of optimism a wee bit. Russell, last year everybody's going on about the season being a roller coaster. I felt it was more of going on the waltzers after the ghost train. That's how I felt last season, rather than a roller coaster with ups and the downs. But let's have a look at that bench there, because income or returning in to the squad comes Shaw and Urhoghide, the 2 signings from Sheffield Wednesday. Shaw, of course, has been involved with the Colts team. You've got Montgomery, and by the way, I think he deserves his place on the bench at the minute. Yep. You've got James McCarthy, who may make his debut today, which would be tremendous. But bringing back the 2 Sheffield Wednesday boys, Russell, does that just show and exemplify just how thin the squad is at the moment? And maybe it's a sign to the board, bringing Griffiths in to say, listen, we're wafer thin, we're having to bring in players that ordinarily I wouldn't be playing here.
Well, I think that's quite interesting, Paul, to be fair, because at the end of the day, the 2 Sheffield Wednesday players will be classed as Ange signings. We've never been told who the head of recruitment is that's brought these guys in. All we've been told is Ange will be given every tool. So if those 2 Sheffield Wednesday players are a sign that I don't have the right players, then whose fault is that? Because surely he had the final say on whether they were coming in or not. Maybe one of them was already pre-agreed, I don't know. But Urhoghide, I certainly thought was meant to be an Ange signing. So I don't think you can then use that as a weapon to say we're short on numbers, because that's something that he obviously fancied. Or is it someone else doing the transfer deals? That's what I'm alluding to. I think that my worry is Celtic have done all right. We always have an eye on Rangers. I look at Rangers as competition, right? See, when I look across the city, I look at it as in a competitive way. I feel Celtic look at them as, what are they doing? What are they doing? And how do we get just a wee level ahead of them? 1 level ahead, not 10 levels ahead, 1 level ahead. They'll have seen that Rangers crashed out magnificently in midweek, right? And they will definitely know that they're going to need to sell some assets. Are they taking the foot off the gas in terms of recruitment right now, based on what's happened over there? I would shudder to think so. However, history tells us when we had a crazy advantage, we never put the foot down then. And I wonder if the events of the past week has maybe slowed up the potential recruitment thing. Maybe right back isn't as big a concern. Maybe left back isn't as big a concern, because we're both out the Champions League and they need to sell. I hope that is not the attitude. I really don't. But I have a sneaky suspicion that could be part of the reason for the transfer slowing down, because you look at the recruitment drive that we did, that wee spell with it, where Hart came in, McCarthy came in. You know, you look at the cluster of signings before that, and you look, you know, Kyogo, Abada, and you think there was momentum getting built there.
Yeah,
and we all thought maybe it was because Ange came in too late in the day that these transfers were only happening now. That was given the benefit of the doubt, was it not? Because now you look at it and you go, there's areas of the pitch that are obviously identifiable that need to be, you know, bolstered. And at this moment in time, why has that process seemed to have slowed up? Why have we missed out on a few targets as well? Then you've got to wonder if the events of the past week have played any part in that.
Listen, no, but the reason you're making the point, Russell, is because we've seen it before. Yeah. We've seen it before, whereby you only go so far because you just want to stay that furlong ahead of your competition, rather than, you know, actually concentrating on what you want to do in terms of, and people have said it on this podcast and they're right, aim for European success. The domestic success will inevitably happen because you are aiming higher. In any case, you're building for something that's a lot more difficult to achieve. Someone does come in and asks the question, or certainly points out, Sean McAteer, welcome to the show, Sean, perhaps there's been a bid for Christie. I don't know, has any other word come out that he's maybe got a knock? Even if you do hear that sometimes from the club, it's something that they'll tell you in any case, just to keep the speculation down. William Peden has decided, and let's be honest, the player's been at the club now for over a year, that Ajeti is a dud. I don't think we've seen anything really, Lawrence. There was a slight bit of hope and momentum during the pre-season, but he's faded again, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when he first came in, the team was almost a goal game his first few games. So you were thinking maybe a player there. Then he goes off the boil. Pre-season, he comes back, he's looking fit. Scores a few goals pre-season, he's off the boil again. But who's ahead of him? You know, you're not going to drop Kyogo for him. Probably, you know. No. The worrying thing is if Griffiths is ahead of him. So I think Kyogo and Eddie have got to be ahead of him just to get Eddie in the short window. You know.
Do you not think it's interesting, Lawrence, as well, that Ajeti was captain, remember, in a couple of the pre-season games, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So it felt like he was getting this new lease of life.
He must have been doing something for Ange to make that decision.
I agree.
He's captain, you know, he was scoring goals. I said, Tony Ralston said 5 games in a row. I think he's changed everyone's opinion. Maybe that's what he's needing is a run. He certainly, when he came into the team, Celtic were struggling last season, so maybe that plays on it. Maybe it'll be easier to bleed them in, you know, once we've got a run of wins under our belt and we've got the wave of optimism going. Maybe when he's coming on for 20 minutes, half an hour, then it'll be better for him. But if we write him off as a dud, it's 5 million out of there. We've got to hope the manager can salvage something from it, even if it is playing him, getting a few goals out and selling him for 3 or 4 million. We can't afford just to, I think, write off 5 million.
Jack Johnson, yeah, thanks for noticing. We multitask here at State of Mind. So if you're needing assistance there, give us a shout. We're in Dalkeith whilst you're going to the game, Jack. So just let us know, pal. It's an interesting point, though, Russell. When you look at Ajeti, who is fading pretty rapidly, isn't he? Barkas, you know, he's not even on the bench now. So you're kind of looking at the club pushing as much as possible to get him out the door. Plus, in Cham, having gone for no fee. And then you're looking at some of the other players who might still go, and the fact that their asset has dropped. And even if the asset has dropped by 5 or 10 million a player, I mean, this is tens of millions of pounds down the Swanee, you know, that could have been used for a massive rebuild and a big push, not just domestically but also to progress in Europe. So I just think that this is really the legacy of the last 3 or 4 years of bad transfers. Don't want to labour the fact because I think obviously we are trying to rebuild. Russell, we're trying to put different structures in place to modernise the club. But it is difficult when you're looking at 10 million quid because, you know, the money is raised. Yeah, we know that merchandise and sponsorship and various investors, etc. But a large proportion of that money is season ticket sales at a club like Celtic because we don't rely on the broadcasting or even the sponsorship down, you know, like down south. A massive proportion of their income is not through the gates. Celtic's proportion of income is huge coming through the gate. So, you know, I'm not going to say I take it personally, but we want the money to be spent wisely, Russell. And I think that when you're looking at Abada, Kyogo, you think, well, that's a step in the right direction. Different type of signing, bringing in Hart and hopefully debut boy today, McCarthy. But it seems as though we are signing a different type of player. Some people might argue and say, well, you know, Abada was the same type of player because of the agent, etc., or McCarthy and Hart might have been looked upon as the same type of player as the likes of Duffy and maybe Ajeti. You know, we're just picking players out of the English league down south. However, you know, when you're looking at the amount of money that Celtic have lost, we can't really rest on that. We've still got to strengthen, and if that means £6 or £7 million times 3, that's what we're going to have to bring in before the transfer window shuts.
If you want to win £40 million at the end of the season, you need to spend money to achieve that. It's that simple. You cannot rest on your laurels here. And just interestingly, on the Hart and McCarthy one, the difference is, yes, they might have been on a previous list, but the difference is, and there is a change in the strategy slightly, is the fact they got 3 and 4 year deals. That is definitely not been on the agenda. So that shows that there's been a slight change.
It's the strategy that's changed because it's not so much this season. I would say it changed last close season. We changed the strategy. We put everything in to get the tenner. So the board are telling us. Traditionally, they would have sold Eddie How much would you have got last? They had a €14 million offer from Cham. So arguably that's 35 million quid. We changed our strategy last season. What else did they change their strategy on? Barkas and Ajeti. There's another 10 million. That's 45 million. Goodness know how much Duffy was coming in. So it was the change of strategy last season. And I know that the board came out and said, oh, it's the fans. They were all focused on it. We didn't change our transfer strategy. You changed the transfer strategy. And it has arguably cost 50 million quid. Just on that change of strategy. It may look like to be getting back to an older strategy now, I would say. And it, for the board to say, it's the fans, it was the pressure putting on. No, stand up to pressure. You had a strategy that worked. You decided to change it. Arguably, would have got more for Aya last year as well. And that would have been money that could be reinvested in the team. So I think it's easily cost us 50 million quid, that change of strategy last season.
Incredible.
Which has got an impact, direct impact on the quality that's in the squad just now and how much money we've got to put into this transfer window.
You're just talking the assets there, Lawrence. You're not even talking about the failures to get into the group stages of the Champions League this season and potentially next. So, it's an incredible loss when you tot it up. But let's be positive. We're in a good vein of form. We are surfing that wave of optimism. Russell Boyce, Jungle Line comes in. If the board give Ange the tools, this could be a great season. A big if, absolutely. We've seen the shape of the side. The sides are on the park. It looks as though Kyogo's playing on the left. This is going to be a very interesting game to watch. At halftime, it will be Lawrence, Russell and myself. There will be no crash at halftime in a Celtic state of mind. But we are going to go and watch the action. So please join us at halftime. Thanks for joining us on YouTube and various other places where we are streaming live, and we'll catch you at halftime, hopefully to talk about another positive 45.